Welcome back to our channel. Hope you all are doing good. Today we will learn English through an easy English story using very simple words. Today we are going to explore one of the greatest civilizations in human history. This is the story of the Roman Empire, a power that once ruled over millions of people, built roads that still exist today, and shaped the entire world we live in now. Let's begin. Every great story needs a beginning, and Rome's beginning starts with a legend. According to old Roman stories, the city was founded in the year 753 before Christ. The legend says that two twin brothers named Romulus and Remus were left alone as bobbies near a river. A female wolf found them and cared for them until they grew strong. When the brothers became adults, they decided to build a city together. However, the two brothers disagreed about where exactly to build it, and this disagreement turned violent. In the end, Romulus killed his brother Remus, and he built the city alone, naming it Rome after himself. Of course, this story is more legend than proven fact, but it shows us something important about how the Romans saw themselves from the very beginning. They saw themselves as strong, determined, and willing to fight for power, even within their own family. The real city of Rome grew on a group of small hills, next to a river called the Tiber, in the middle of a long land called Italy. This location was extremely useful. The river gave the people fresh water and an easy way to trade with other towns. The hills gave the people a natural, strong position to defend against enemies. Over time, small farming villages on these hills slowly joined together, and this is how the true city of Rome was actually born. In its earliest days, Rome was ruled by kings. This period is known as the Roman Kingdom. For about 250 years, a series of kings ruled the growing city. Some of these kings were wise and fair. They built roads, temples, and strong city walls. But the final king, a man remembered as cruel and unfair, treated the people very badly and used his power selfishly. Eventually, this king was overthrown by the Roman people, who had grown tired of living under his harsh rule. After removing this king, the Romans made an important decision. They decided they would never again be ruled by a single king. Instead, they created a new system of government called a republic. In a republic, power is shared among many people, rather than held by just one ruler. The Romans created a system with two leaders called consuls, who were elected every year and shared power equally. This meant that no single consul could rule alone, because the other consul could always disagree and stop him. They also created a group called the Senate, made up of wealthy and experienced men who advised on important decisions and helped guide the direction of the growing city. Over time, ordinary citizens also gained more voice in government. They elected their own officials, called tribunes, whose job was to protect the rights of common people against powerful nobles. This balance of power, shared between different groups, became one of Rome's greatest strengths. It allowed the city to make strong decisions, while still preventing any single person from becoming too powerful too quickly. This new system, the Roman Republic, lasted for about 500 years. During this time, Rome grew from a small city into a major power across the entire region. Roman soldiers were highly disciplined and well organized, which gave them a strong advantage in battle against their neighbors. Slowly, city by city and region by region, Rome expanded its control across the Italian peninsula. But Rome's biggest challenge during this period came from a powerful rival city called Carthage, located across the sea in North Africa. Carthage was a wealthy trading power, and its influence competed directly with Rome's growing ambitions. This rivalry led to a series of major wars, known today as the Punic Wars, fought over more than 100 years. The most famous moment of these wars involved a brilliant Carthaginian general named Hannibal. In a bold and almost unbelievable military move, Hannibal led an army, including a group of war elephants, across the Alps mountains to attack Italy directly from the north. This surprise attack shocked the Romans, and Hannibal won several major battles against them. However, despite these early victories, Hannibal was eventually unable to fully defeat Rome. He stayed in Italy for many years, winning battle after battle, but he never had enough soldiers or supplies to capture the city of Rome itself. Meanwhile, the Romans refused to give up. They regrouped, rebuilt their forces, and trained new soldiers. Eventually, a talented Roman general named Scipio launched a bold counterattack, sailing his army directly to North Africa to attack Carthage on its own home ground. This forced Hannibal to leave Italy and rush back to defend his own city. In the final battle of this long war, Scipio defeated Hannibal decisively. This was a turning point in Roman history. Carthage was ultimately destroyed many years later in a third and final war, and Rome became the unquestioned dominant power across the entire Mediterranean region, with no rival strong enough to challenge it. With this victory, Rome's wealth, territory, and military power grew rapidly. But this incredible growth also created serious problems back home. As Rome expanded, powerful and ambitious individuals began gaining enormous influence, wealth, and personal armies loyal only to themselves, rather than to Rome as a whole. This growing imbalance of power slowly began to threaten the stability of the entire republic. This brings us to one of the most famous figures in all of world history, Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar was a brilliant military commander and a skilled politician. He led successful military campaigns across a large region known as Gaul, which covered much of modern-day France. During these campaigns, he also led his soldiers across the sea to the island of Britain, becoming one of the very first Roman commanders to set foot there. His stunning victories made him incredibly popular among the Roman people, but they also made many members of the Senate deeply nervous and suspicious of his growing power and ambition. Caesar also formed a close alliance with two other powerful Roman leaders, Pompey and Crassus. Together, the three of them secretly agreed to support each other and share control over Roman politics. This alliance worked well for a while, but after Crassus died in battle, the friendship between Caesar and Pompey slowly broke apart, and the two men became bitter rivals instead of allies. Eventually, tensions between Caesar and the Senate, encouraged strongly by Pompey, reached a serious breaking point. The Senate ordered Caesar to give up his command and return to Rome without his army. Instead, in a defiant and now legendary move, Caesar led his loyal army directly across a small river called the Rubicon, marching straight toward Rome itself. This decisive action was essentially a direct declaration of civil war against the Senate's authority. It is even said that Caesar spoke a famous phrase at this exact moment, declaring that the decision was now made, and there was no turning back. Caesar's bold gamble ultimately succeeded. He chased Pompey across the Mediterranean Sea and defeated his forces in a major battle. Pompey fled to Egypt, seeking safety, but he was betrayed and killed shortly after arriving there. Caesar then traveled to Egypt himself, where he met the famous Egyptian queen, Cleopatra, and formed a powerful alliance with her. With his rivals finally defeated, Caesar returned to Rome, took full control of the government, and was eventually declared dictator for life, giving him supreme and unmatched power over the entire republic. However, many members of the Senate feared that Caesar intended to fully abolish the Republic and rule as an absolute king. To prevent this outcome, a group of senators secretly plotted against him. On a day now remembered as the Ides of March, in the year 44 before Christ, this group of senators assassinated Julius Caesar right inside the Senate building itself. Caesar's death did not restore peace to Rome, though. Instead, it triggered a fierce and bloody power struggle for control of the entire Roman world, and the outcome of that struggle would completely transform Rome forever, shifting it away from a republic and towards something entirely new. That incredible transformation is exactly where we will pick up next. After Caesar was killed, Rome did not find peace. Instead, a new struggle for power began almost immediately. Caesar had a young adopted son named Octavian, who was only 18 years old at the time. Many people doubted that this young man could achieve anything important, but Octavian proved to be extremely clever and patient. At first, Octavian joined forces with two other powerful men, Mark Antony and Lepidus, to hunt down and defeat the senators who had murdered Caesar. Together, these three men crushed their enemies and took control of Rome. However, just like the earlier alliance between Caesar and Pompey, this new partnership did not last forever. Slowly, Lepidus lost his power and influence, leaving only Octavian and Mark Antony as the two dominant leaders in the Roman world. Mark Antony eventually formed a close relationship with Queen Cleopatra of Egypt, and together they built their own powerful base in the east. Octavian, meanwhile, remained in Rome, presenting himself as a loyal and responsible Roman leader. Tensions between the two men grew steadily worse, until war finally broke out between them. In a massive naval battle near a place called Actium, Octavian's forces achieved a decisive victory over the combined navy of Mark Antony and Cleopatra. Following this defeat, both Mark Antony and Cleopatra took their own lives rather than be captured. With his last major rival gone, Octavian now stood as the single most powerful man in the entire Roman world, with no one left strong enough to challenge him. In the year 27 before Christ, the Roman Senate gave Octavian a new title, calling him Augustus, meaning the revered one. Although he was careful never to officially call himself a king, Augustus effectively became Rome's first true emperor. This important moment marked the end of the old Roman Republic and the true beginning of the Roman Empire. Augustus proved to be an extremely wise and capable ruler. He reformed the government, strengthened the military, and brought long-lasting stability to a land that had suffered through decades of civil war. Under his leadership, Rome entered a remarkable period of peace and prosperity that would later be known as the Pax Romana, meaning Roman peace. This period of relative calm and stability lasted for about 200 years, allowing trade, art, and culture to flourish across the entire empire. During this long period of peace, the Roman Empire grew to a truly massive size. At its very largest, the empire stretched from the misty hills of Britain in the north, all the way to the hot deserts of Egypt in the south. It reached from Spain in the west, all the way to parts of the Middle East in the east. Millions of people from many different cultures, languages, and religions all lived together under Roman rule. To manage such a huge and diverse territory, the Romans became master builders and engineers. They constructed an incredible network of roads, connecting nearly every corner of the empire. These roads were so well built that many of them are still visible today, even after almost 2,000 years. The Romans also built impressive aqueducts, tall stone structures designed to carry fresh water across long distances, bringing clean water directly into their busy, growing cities. Roman engineers also gave the world incredible architecture. They built massive amphitheaters, like the famous Colosseum in Rome, where thousands of spectators gathered to watch dramatic public events. They developed a strong and organized legal system, with clear written laws that applied across the entire empire. Many of these basic legal ideas still influence modern law systems used around the world today. Roman engineers also perfected the use of a special building material called concrete, which allowed them to construct massive domes, strong bridges, and tall buildings that could survive for centuries, long after simpler wooden structures had completely disappeared. Of course, not every Roman emperor ruled wisely or fairly. Some emperors became famous for their strange and cruel behavior. One well-known example is the Emperor Nero, who is often remembered for his extreme cruelty and for allegedly playing music while a great fire burned through much of the city of Rome. Historians still debate exactly how much of this dramatic story is completely true and how much may have been exaggerated by his enemies after his death. Another emperor, named Caligula, is also remembered in old records for strange and unpredictable behavior, though many historians today believe some of these dramatic stories may have grown larger and stranger with each retelling over the centuries. On the other hand, some emperors are remembered very positively for their wisdom and their many positive achievements. This period, in fact, produced a series of rulers later remembered by historians as the Five Good Emperors. The Emperor Trajan expanded the empire to its largest ever size, conquering new territories and bringing great wealth into Rome. The Emperor Hadrian is remembered for strengthening the empire's borders, including building a massive defensive wall across northern Britain that still stands today and still carries his name. Another emperor from this period, Marcus Aurelius, was known not only as a capable military leader, but also as a thoughtful philosopher, writing personal reflections on wisdom and duty that people around the world still read and study today. Life within the Roman Empire varied greatly, depending on where exactly a person lived and their particular social class. Wealthy Roman citizens enjoyed comfortable homes, fine food, and access to public baths, theaters, and grand entertainment. These wealthy families often owned large country estates, filled their homes with beautiful art, and spent their evenings enjoying music, poetry, and lively conversation with guests. Ordinary working citizens lived much simpler lives, working as farmers, craftsmen, traders, or soldiers within the vast Roman economy. A typical working family lived in a small apartment within a crowded city building, ate simple meals of bread, vegetables, and olive oil, and spent long hours working to support themselves. Public entertainment was still an important part of daily life for these ordinary citizens too. Free public events, including chariot races and dramatic gladiator contests, were held regularly, drawing enormous crowds from every level of society. At the very bottom of Roman society, millions of enslaved people were forced to work without any freedom at all, performing hard labor on farms, inside busy households, and within dangerous mines across the empire. Slavery was deeply woven into almost every part of Roman life and the Roman economy, and it remains one of the darkest and most difficult parts of this entire historical story. The Roman army was another key reason behind the empire's incredible, long-lasting success. Roman soldiers were highly trained, extremely well organized, and equipped with strong, standardized weapons and armor. This powerful, professional army allowed Rome to conquer vast new territories, while also successfully defending its long borders against outside enemies and threats for many centuries. However, no empire, no matter how powerful, can last forever without eventually facing serious challenges. Over time, the mighty Roman Empire slowly began to weaken from within. Political corruption steadily increased. Powerful military generals frequently fought bitterly among themselves for control of the imperial throne, sometimes changing emperors several times within a single difficult year. The massive cost of defending such enormous, distant borders placed a severe strain on the empire's finances and its overall economy. To pay for its huge army, the government repeatedly reduced the value of its own coins, which slowly caused prices to rise and made daily life harder for ordinary citizens. At the same time, various outside groups, often referred to in historical records as barbarian tribes, began pushing steadily against Rome's weakening borders from beyond its edges. Groups such as the Goths, the Vandals, and the Huns launched repeated invasions into Roman territory, gradually chipping away at the empire's strength, wealth, and territory, year after year. Rome's once unstoppable army, worn down by decades of internal conflict and reduced funding, struggled more and more to hold back these determined and growing threats. Eventually, in the year 285, the empire became so incredibly large and difficult to manage effectively that it was formally divided into two separate halves for administrative purposes: the Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire. The western half, centered around the city of Rome itself, continued to weaken steadily over the following decades. The eastern half, centered around the city of Constantinople, remained considerably stronger and would eventually survive for many more centuries as its own separate empire. In the year 476, a Germanic military leader named Odoacer removed the last Western Roman emperor from power completely. Historians widely mark this specific event as the official fall of the Western Roman Empire, bringing an end to nearly 1,000 years of continuous Roman rule and dominance in the West. Although the Western Roman Empire eventually fell, its powerful and lasting influence never truly disappeared from the world. The Latin language that the Romans spoke gradually evolved over time into many modern languages we still use today, including Italian, Spanish, French, and Portuguese. Roman laws, Roman engineering methods, and Roman architecture continue to strongly influence builders, thinkers, and governments for many centuries afterward, right up to the present day. Even now, more than 1,500 years after its final collapse, we can still clearly see Rome's lasting impact all around us in the modern world. We see it in our modern legal systems, many of which still rely on basic Roman legal principles. We see it in the roads and impressive bridges we regularly use, some of which were originally built using engineering methods first developed by Roman builders. We see it in grand government buildings designed in a distinctly Roman architectural style, complete with tall columns and wide domes, found in cities all across the globe today, from Europe to the United States. The story of the Roman Empire is truly a powerful reminder that even the greatest civilizations in human history eventually rise and eventually fall. But the lasting ideas, achievements, and innovations they leave behind can genuinely continue to shape our world for thousands of years afterward. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through the incredible history of the Roman Empire. If you enjoyed learning English through this story, please give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more English learning stories. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the very next video.